I am often asked what ways can folks improve their guitars for not a lot of money. So I thought I would compile 5 tips to improve your guitar, and kind of we're gonna cross some lines here. We're going to go into guitar improvements and tonal improvements, and we're gonna cover some playability things. I'm gonna try to nail a few different categories, as it were, in the guitar realm. So here we go, enjoy, and if you like, leave a comment down below and tell me your favorite tip. Let's get started. Tip number 1, check the string height at the nut. Now, all innuendos aside, the string height at the nut is often neglected and missed, and very high in action on a lot of production guitars out of the box. Now, this is easily adjustable, and this is more of a personal preference kind of a thing, but more and more, this takes more time and more money for the manufacturers to set properly, i.e. lower in relation to the first fret. So usually it's just left pretty high, and that can affect the ability to intonate the guitar depending on the kind of bridge, like a tune-o-matic, like a Gibson style. If the strings are too high at the nuts, you're gonna have a bad time. So it's imperative that the action at the nut is low enough. Now, you can get nut files like this guy from Stu Mac. These run about 40 bucks each. So if you're gonna do this on a regular basis, it's probably a good idea to get these. I don't really recommend using the string to file away, because that doesn't really work on the unwound strings, but you can also generally take it for a setup, and that will always be included in the quote-unquote setup that you are paying a guitar tech to do. Usually that runs about 40, 50 bucks, depending on the guitar tech, of course. But always be sure to mention the string height at the nut. It's always a good thing. Tip number 2, the Scotchbrite on the neck trick. Now, this is for the guitars that have the polyurethane and the nitrocellulose finish on the back of the neck. These finishes can tend to feel a little sticky and catch your hand and not maybe feel as smooth as, say, a satin finish or something like that. Now, a cheap and easy way to fix that is to use a Scotchbrite pad on the back of the guitar. You simply wrap it around the neck lightly, don't overdo it, and you would tape off the top. You tape off the top at the nut and tape off where you want to stop at the heel, and you would just give a few rubs, and you would check it, and you would repeat this process until you got the smoothness that you wanted. Now, there are some horror stories on the net about people just going nuts and basically sanding off the finish on the back of their necks. Don't do that. This takes very little pressure, very little effort. I will link down below in the description to some articles regarding this method, but this is a cheap, quick, and easy method to kind of fix that sticky guitar neck syndrome. Tip number 3, change those tuners. Now, a lot of inexpensive guitars, including this import $300 G&L Rampage, have inexpensive tuners. Now, inexpensive tuners are there to do the job and nothing more, and often they don't do the job. I would consider a tuning key inferior if there's a lot of backlash, as defined by play before the tuning peg actually moves when you're turning the tuning key. Shoddy build quality and materials are generally not as good as aftermarket tuners or higher end tuners that come on factory guitars, such as PRS or something like that. A replacement set of tuners is generally, you can find them for about $65 or $70, which is not a lot of money to improve the overall tuning stability of your guitar. I personally like Hipshots. This is a spare box I've had with old tuners in it. This is not a paid advertisement for Hipshot. I just happen to like Hipshot, but Grover and Schaller and Spurzell are also really, really good aftermarket tuning key options. So definitely check your options on your guitar. Usually most companies these days make a replacement tuner for pretty much every stock factory tuning key out there. So it's just good to kind of have a look around, but 9 times out of 10, replacing the stock tuning keys on your guitar is always a good idea. Now, keeping with the theme of tuning instability, that brings us to tip number 4. lube that nut. There's so many jokes I can make, but I won't make them. This is a family show. Especially prevalent on guitars that do not have straight string pull, namely and most famously Gibson guitars. So there's an angle right here where the string goes right after the nut there. String binding on the nut is a very common symptoms of guitars that don't have straight string pull. Now, you could get a product like Big Ben's Nut Sauce, I think it's called. Yeah, Big Ben's Nut Sauce, which is a great product and it works great. But this is $10 to $20 depending on the size that you get. Or if you want to save yourself a little money, you could use a graphite pencil and just scratch in some graphite in the nut slot itself. Now do this for all the strings, but this is especially useful on strings like the G and the B and the E string. There's probably some jokes I could make in there as well. Simply just find the smallest mechanical pencil you can, probably from your little sister, your little brother, or something like that, and just do the thing, and then be sure to give them back the pencil. Don't be taking any pencils. Restring, and you are good to go. Now this will do a lot for tuning stability, in addition to changing out your tuning keys that we talked about on the previous tip. I've been actually doing this trick to all my guitars, regardless of graphite nut or not, just by habit, since I started playing guitar in the summer of 1994. My guitar teacher showed me this, and I've carried this pencil around for literally 20 years. And yeah, it's really worked great and probably saved me a bunch of money as well. Now, lastly, tip number 5, change those pickups. Now, I hear what you're saying. I can hear you from a long distance away in a land far, far away. Fluff, I already know to change my pickups, but they're so expensive. Ah, yes, you would be right. But a lot of folks change out pickups quite frequently, or when they do change it out even just once, they have nothing to do with their set that came out of the guitar, so they usually will put it on eBay or reverb.com. So don't be afraid of getting a used pickup that's been pulled out of a guitar, because you can save yourself a lot of money and improve your tone a lot for just a little bit. You know, usually a used pickup will typically go for 40 bucks, something like that, $40, $50, which is at least half of what that said pickup would cost. I'm thinking of like a Seymour Duncan in my head, or a DiMarzio or something like that. But you don't have to buy aftermarket pickups brand new. Don't be afraid to just peruse eBay and enter a guitar humbucker or used humbucker or something like that. There are huge deals to be had in the aftermarket and on the used market. So little money would go a long way in that department. I hope you enjoyed these 5 tips. If you have any more tips, leave them down below in the comments and maybe I'll make a part 2, you never know. You've been wonderful, I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.